Hey, beautiful people. My name's Kristen. Thank you for taking some time stopping by my channel. I have a few of my books that I am reading the month of February that I just wanted to take time to kind of highlight and focus on. I know sometimes I am looking for a little bit more in depth of certain things, and February is Black History Month. And, you know, I don't know that I deserve to have a big talking into Black History Month as I feel like that is an area I don't know a lot about. But if you're kind of in the same boat where you don't know a whole lot about it, then maybe what I have to say helps you start picking up the right things and thinking about things too. And we can be on this journey together, which is a great thing in BookTube world. So, as a white woman learning more about the awesome Martin Luther King, his letter that he wrote, I think it wasn't even, a full stationary piece of paper. I think he had to like write in margins of letters and things like that just to even write this. But he was writing the letter to a group of white pastors. And I work for a church, so that was particularly striking to me to actually read it. It's a very short book, and it just explains kind of his thoughts and reactions and frustrations with his assembling the people to do the marches. He's in prison now for disturbing the peace or rioting or all these things. And so he's kind of explaining his position, all the things that he had done leading up to this to try to do things the right way, and that it wasn't being listened to. And it was particularly poignant for me, the takeaway of he didn't directly quote the pastors, he just referred to a letter that they had written. But my understanding was that their premise was that they were encouraging him to calm down, to tone it down, to settle down, to not march, to not, disturb anything, because he just needed to be patient and wait. And it was interesting, his response to that about, you don't have to live in this world. You don't, I am in a different world or a different culture. And what's interesting is sometimes when we're side by side, we don't understand that we have so much difference or a different experience than the person who's right next to us, if that makes sense. You could be in your classroom growing up and the person next to you is struggling financially and they didn't even get to eat breakfast that day, and you just took it for granted. You couldn't decide, you had a refrigerator full of stuff and didn't really feel like eating any of that, but you were like overwhelmed with the choice. And that's a completely different perspective that you just don't think about unless you have these discussions and do think about it. So that's what this book of a letter, did for me, just stopping me, thinking about it like, oh, yeah, if you're growing up and you're living in a world where you are discriminated against continuously, there's not really time to wait for the change. You have to be the change. And his remarks of being disappointed and discouraged by the lack of the church's support of him was just really powerful and moving to me. And I know, we know from what, or I know from watching Selma and some of those, there were some white pastors that did take up his cause and march with him and do those things. And I don't know if they did this before or after this letter. Again, I'm still learning all this, but they paid a price for it too. And, we all, I think, can agree that it would come to a great day when we don't see color. But the truth is, we are different, and that's okay. We can talk about that. We can understand, and again, hear how that is different for somebody else. And then, to go along with that, I read The Narrative and Life of Frederick Douglass, who was one of the key kind of Black abolitionists back in his day, who was a slave who became free and then went on to help other people become free as well. And he had been educated to actually read, starting with the wife of his slave owner, and then she started to get in trouble for that, of course. And so then he figured out a way to get the white kids who were learning and able to have the schooling, and he figured out a way to have them kind of finish that education and continue to get him things to read and that kind of nature. So very, very smart, very just proactive in his own education and learning and knowing when to push and when to back away. But he's in a slave system where the lot of life is just against him, and he dealt with such hardships. And a couple things that were really striking about his life that I don't think are complete spoilers, since we have the basic outline of who he is, was just the notion that when he was doing his work as an abolitionist, that he was considered a very well-spoken, educated Black man, and some people didn't even believe that he'd ever been a slave, because they're just like, oh, there's no way you were a slave. And that was kind of, he says, this is kind of what I'm writing to. I'm writing to address you. This is my life. And the horrors and the full impact and grittiness and pain and angst is so felt reading this. And it's a short, easy read, and I highly, highly recommend this for anybody trying to wrap their brain around what slavery was actually like. I think, and I think he even says, this is only my viewpoint, I'm not speaking to the rest of the country or whatever's going on, but in my mind, this is what I'm picturing, the rest of the country going on. So just very powerful. I won't say over too much about it, but just this notion that it is okay to have other experiences as people and to go ahead and claim it and name it. And I personally did not own slaves. I don't think there's many people in this country who would even say that was okay on this day and age, right? We've moved past that. We can all agree that slavery is a bad thing. And yet this does, even his narrative gives explanation that leads to this narrative, right? It's still, there's no like direct slavery happening here, but the rights are still not equal. So it's just a really great time, and I think you don't have to wait till February to learn about Black history. I look forward to learning some more all year round and just continuing this quest to understand and to learn and to explore and to communicate, and just to have a deeper awareness and understanding when other people are talking about their experiences, not only on the slavery issue, but just different issues in general. So if you have read these and want to add your comments below, do so. If you are interested in reading them now, you can hit me up. We can talk about them. I thank you for stopping by. I hope that you're having an awesome reading month, whatever you're reading. Take care. We'll chat again soon.